Kind of like long
so
beat.
kind of like, if you like pinch it in.
Hello everyone, my name is Anku-Tsed and welcome to the KTV Student Union Election Debate. Today I will be interviewing the candidates for the Vice President of Academic Experience. We've got with us today Lupe Soleil and Louise Howell. For our live audience, if you would like to ask any of the candidates any questions, please either comment on the live stream or submit your questions via the link on our Instagram bio. We will now ask the candidates to read out their opening statements, and we'll start with Louise.
So, as you've heard, my name is Louise and I'm running for VP of Academic Experience. This is my first time ever doing this and I'm going against my role model, Lupe Soleil. And my reasons for standing are better communication within the university, not just the lecturers and the students, but also Kent Union and the representatives that control pretty much the university. I also want healthier deadlines, which I think Lupe will completely understand with, and better feedback systems. That's all I have to say. If you want to talk to me, I have my Insta.
Thank you very much, Louise. And Lupe, your opening statement?
Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Lupe Soleil. I'm the current Vice President of Academic Experience and I'm rerunning to be your officer for one more year. Last year, during the campaigns, I told you all how I didn't know anything about Kent Union, and that was the main basis for my campaign. But I also told you that I was a very fast learner and a very innovative thinker, and I've proven that through all the work that I've done this year, the student priorities that you voted for. And now not only do I have the same drive and the same ambition as I did in the last elections, but I also have a lot more expertise and knowledge on the university structures and policies, as well as really good relationships with the people that make the decisions at the university. So I am in a really good place to represent you all. I would love the opportunity to continue doing that, to continue pushing for the highest quality education from the university. And I believe that after such a hard period that we've all gone through, it's really important to develop an academic environment that helps our students thrive as opposed to getting them exhausted. And I would like to do this by pushing for fairer workloads, more diverse assessments, and consistency of excellent support.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much, Lupe. Okay, so we will now move on to the questions aspect of the debate. The first question would be, what soft and technical skills do you believe you have that would make you the better candidate for the role? I think we'll start off with Luis.
Can you explain it a bit more simply for me?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So what this question is basically asking is about any soft skills or any sort of technical skills that you think you may have gained from any sort of experience that you have that would make you the perfect candidate for this role.
I'm not afraid to speak up for myself. We did a bit of an introduction thing for Senate, and they asked me how I felt being in Senate, and I said I was uncomfortable. And that's not easy to say to the people who are actually running it. As a student, it's not easy to voice your voice when these are people who are teaching you, and they've had the years of experience and expertise, and they've done this for years, and you're just here, listening in, trying to contribute as much as you can, but it is uncomfortable. And I spoke up, said, I am uncomfortable, I don't feel equal. I'm a student against these lecturers. When you're on your own, it's not easy.
Thank you for that. And Lupe?
I totally agree. I think that having the communication skills and the confidence to speak up at these things is the most important part. There's no point in sitting in meetings where you're not going to speak up and you're not going to ask the questions that students want to ask, because that's your only shot that you got. But I think representation is one of my really big skills. It's something that I've gotten a lot of feedback on from students as well as from staff in the university, in terms of not backing down, like I said, asking the questions that students would like to ask, making sure that I challenge things that don't sound right to me, that wouldn't sound right to any student. But also there's other really important skills that you need to have for this role, like EDI, and having all that expertise is really important, because you are not here to represent your own experience, you're here to represent 20,000 students at our university. Not only students from the UK, but also students from other parts of the world, students that might be studying in Brussels or in Paris or in Medway, for example. So you need to have the ability to represent all these people, and that's something that EDI really helps with. But also I think you need to have a really strong sense of achievement and a really strong sense of initiative to do this role, because it's very intimidating, like Lewis has said, but you need to come in with the mindset that, I'm going to get the stuff done on behalf of students, because that's what you have been elected to do at the end of the day. So I think those are really important key skills.
Thank you very much, Lupe. So we'll move on to the second question, which is, how would you address student concerns about the standard of teaching received during their pandemic? So we'll start off with Lupe this time.
Thank you. So one of the ways I've already began working on this year, as I've been Vice President for the past 8 months, is developing easier channels that are really visible and that are really respected, not only by the students, but also by the university. For example, the academic experience reporting tool has been something that has really helped address student concerns. And I feel like a lot of the time students will go out to their divisions or the schools or more general, the web pages on the university's website. But that's very general advice, very general information. And what students really need and what we're paying for is for that more personal experience, more ad hoc. advice and support. And I feel like that's something that students have really been crying out for, the need to feel individual, the need to feel that value for money, that I'm actually being respected as a person, not just as another number at the university. So putting in place more channels like that are really, really important. But also something that's really key to addressing people's concerns is closing that feedback loop, because a lot of the times people will give you some feedback or they'll tell you something that they want to change, but they never hear the outcome of it, or they're never told, yeah, we've done this, or we haven't done this because of A, B, and C. And I feel like that communication is something that really needs to be done to make sure that people are not only satisfied, but also reassured that we are actually doing everything that we can to help them, to support them accurately, and to represent them really, really accurately as well.
And Louise?
You've said pretty much most of the key points. I agree with Lupe. As a student, I need to have that closed feedback loop. I'm not sure where the feedback's going. They don't tell us where it's gone up higher or it's come back to go, we need to make it a bit more improved with this agenda. So having more transparency and seeing where this is going is important for the students. I'd like to know where it's going, especially when I voiced my own concerns. Continuing on with, students are also a bit worried with assessments right now, and especially with the assessment boycott coming up. And we're not sure if the feedback's going to be received in time for our assessments that are just going to be done or going to be done. So we would like some reassurance of, are the assessments that are being marked going to be finished marked, because there's nothing being outlined yet. They've told us that the ones that are about to be marked might not be, but they might be if some schools or divisions are not really striking. So at least some divisions have given communication, but not all. But I think we need to focus on the priorities, and when the student priorities come out, that will be the main concern. That's when everyone will be fighting for those concerns that the students have voiced.
Okay, thank you very much. So both of you actually throughout your campaign have stressed student involvement and engagement being very important. What practical plans do you have to boost the student involvement? I think we'll start with Louis on this one.
Most divisions have a student experience team or a student success team. I think we might need to start utilising them and actually go, because I'm in the division of Nats, and they give us weekly emails saying all the events that they're doing, and some of them are free, some of them are just talks from lecturers, some of them are external speakers coming in and telling them our experience. Going to use an example on one of them. Professor Dan Lloyd spoke to third year students about life after uni, which is something that third years are actually very afraid of. What do we do after uni? There's of course the master's route, but what happens when you don't want to do a master's? What do? Do you go travelling? Do you want to find work straight away? Where are the resources for the work? Luckily we've got the Careers and Employability Centre here on campus, but not everyone's aware of it. So maybe trying to introduce careers and employability with the student success teams and go, this is what we have, utilise them. I think the problem is we don't realise we have these systems until we're told, and not every student reads their emails. We are all aware of that. But maybe trying to get the Instagrams, the TikToks. I know that sounds so weird coming out of my mouth because I don't watch TikTok. But modernise it. Emails slowly becoming outdated.
Yeah.
And Lupe?
So I think one of the biggest parts of engagement is trust, and I feel like the university has a lot of trust to rebuild with students after all the experiences that we've been having for the last few years. So definitely working on that. I've already put a few things in motion. I've already done a few things that I would like to do again if re-elected next year. I think that having initial contact with people in the first years is really, really important during welcome week, during their induction period, because you just come into university, everything's exciting, everything's interesting, and that's how you capture people's attention. We need to remember that because of COVID, we've lost practically 2 whole generations of students that weren't on campus, that don't really know what uni life is like, that don't know about all the societies and what sports clubs are and what student reps are. So I feel like that's that work that we need to do, rebuilding with the people that are coming fresh into the university. But also, I think that engagement, especially when it benefits the university, such as all the research opportunities that they're doing right now in terms of the BAME student voice, in terms of the future of academic experience, the future of teaching, the shape of the academic year, all of these things, they require a lot of student input to make sure that they are up to standards to what students want. But the thing is, students have so many other concerns, and this is why a lot of students fail to engage. They are concerned about their part-time job. They're concerned if their third year is about applying to graduate jobs. They might have caring responsibilities. They might be commuting students. So it's really hard for some people to engage. I think that we need to value students' time, especially when, like I said, when it benefits the university in terms of research. So given better incentives for students to engage with the university would be really valuable. It's something that I've been pushing for. The university gives financial compensation in some cases for students that take part in research, that go to focus groups or fill out questionnaires. But a lot of the incentives are not really suited, or they're not the most beneficial for students. A lot of the times they'll give you an Amazon voucher, for example, which, not all students want to buy stuff off Amazon. Not all students are interested in supporting businesses like Amazon, so it puts in that barrier. But I've been pushing, for example, for the university to offer students Kent 1 credit instead of Amazon vouchers. So you would be able to use that money that you got from engaging in research, from giving your voice and using, your opinions to shape your time at Kent. You'd be able to use that money, for example, to shop at Co-op and do your weekly shop, and it would take some financial pressures off of you. I think that was really valuable for students, and it would really help with engagement. So yeah, those are a few ideas. There's many more. I could speak a lot about student engagement because it's something that I really want to work on next year and really perfect it, because I feel like we've done really, really good work this year in terms of communications, in terms of marketing. There's always more to be done. There's always more to improve. But I think we're in a really good position, and if re-elected, it's something that I'll be definitely focusing on.
Thank you, Lupe. So this next question actually comes off the last question about contacting students. You both mentioned how important that was when it comes to engagement. So we all know that students are email fatigued. People get tired receiving dozens of emails from several aspects of university life. You've kind of already touched on that, Lewis, but then what else? Do you have anything else you would want to add about how to effectively communicate with the student body? We'll start with Lewis on this one.
When I first joined in 2019, I actually met Kent Union in a lecture theatre. So they would actually talk, saying what they did, what they do, and how to contact them. Mm-hmm. I think we might need to reintroduce that back. Slowly do it. Don't force it back on, and go, this is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. This is where the advice centre is. This is where the food bank is. And just telling students that there is a place to go. Mm. And it might be a lecture theatre. I think maybe start small, go into a seminar room and be in a drop-in session. And let students decide if they want to come. But as we know, some students go, I haven't got the time, I need places to be. So maybe actually being in the plaza, where it's the most common area to find students, and go, here's an incentive, here's a free hot drink in one of the outlets on campus, and just for 5 minutes of your time, would you like to hear what we do?
Yeah,
I think on the first point that Lewis has made, is something that we have been doing. I've actually delivered probably between 10 and 15 different welcome talks this year in September, as well as doing a bunch of webinars with the university for students that are coming. Those were webinars that had about 70 to 100 students in attendance. We were reaching, a wide enough audience. So we have been doing that. And like I said, that's a really key part of introducing people to the experience. Also, I'd like to say we have an amazing rep structure. that we can use. It trickles down onto every single level of university, whether you're a first year in chems or you're a third year in LSSJ, you have a student rep there that you can talk to. And I feel like utilizing, these amazing key volunteers that dedicate their time to help other students is a really good way to communicate things to students, both in terms of feedback from the students to Kent Union, but also information about events, initiatives, projects, research opportunities that could be trickled down from the reps to the students. That's a really effective way to communicate with them as well. But also having a space like Teams. Every student uses Teams. I've set up this year a Teams channel with every single student rep, as well as every single president of academic societies, where I will post updates, or I will post polls for them to vote on and give their opinions in a way that's quick and easy, where they don't have to fill out a 30-minute long questionnaire. They can just do it really quickly and give their feedback and talk to me that way as well. But of course, in person is also really, really important. When people see your face, they recognize you. They get more of a flavor of who you are and what you're about. So yeah, definitely going to events and being in the spaces that students are, for example, is one of the best ways as well.
Thank you both for your response. So this question specifically is for Lupe. I mean, you did just talk about how it's important to use the student reps in communicating with students. And I believe this was something you actually did mention in your campaign last year. You sought to improve the visibility and the quality of student reps and the system through better training and incentives. Do you feel the current level of support that is established right now is enough for student reps?
I always think that there's more that we can do. Training gets constantly reviewed and improved with feedback that students give us. So if they tell us that something was missing for the training, or we see that a lot of student reps are coming to us with the same question, then we will try to include that in the training so that we are improving even more every single time. I think in terms of incentives, there is a lot more than I can do and that I will do in terms of giving people the opportunity to take part in study programs and getting a certificate, for example, in terms of leadership or in terms of representation or EDI, and making sure that people leave with more tangible rewards. Also, an idea that I've had as well is that we will hopefully be implementing very soon is to start having monthly events for all of our new student reps to kind of introduce them to the Kent Union family, introduce them to other reps, letting them know, what other student reps have achieved in the past as well, to kind of inspire them and give them an idea of what they can achieve is one of the best ways to train people. Give them examples, tell them what they can actually achieve, and then they will step out of the box and make something even better. So yeah, there's a lot more to be done. But yeah, I'm very happy to take any feedback as well on that.
Thank you. And on that note, Lewis, do you have anything to say on what Lupe has just said?
As a student rep, I've only just recently become one. That would be a really nice opportunity to actually introduce myself and meet the previous reps and actually knowing the history. So that would be a nice thing to actually experience. And I like the certificate idea. It's a great incentive to show that they have done something and they can actually bring it into interviews and go, yes, I actually did do it, and here's some proof of I was a student rep. And it'd be nice to actually have like proper signatures too on it to make it more realistic.
Okay, thank you very much. So this next one is again directed to the both of you, and the question goes, the VP of Academic Experience is one position that is uniquely and closely linked to university management and operations. Scholars will tell you constantly that public universities are very bureaucratic and kind of stuck in their ways. So how do you envision sustainable, timely, and effective change to be made during your tenure? It's a bit of a long question, so I think we'll start with Lupe on this one.
Thank you. I think, especially since I've been in the role and I've been working every single day with these people for the past 8 months, is that I've began to understand a bit more why things take so long. There's a lot of levels to decision making at university, but the way to make sustained change is to keep present for it. Make sure that in every single meeting that you go, you mention the issue. If you have to repeat yourself 10 times, repeat yourself 10 times until they hear you, because they will, and they have heard me in a lot of occasions. So sometimes you just need to understand that things take time. Building relationships with university stakeholders takes time. It's a skill that you acquire, and building respect for yourself and getting others to respect you as well is something that takes time. So I think that making sure that we are using our voice, that we are constantly speaking with students and raising real issues with real examples in these meetings, it's what's most compelling to university. But I think that, like I say, you just need to keep pushing at every single level to make sure that things get moved on forward, because Kent is a huge institution with a lot of staff, with a lot of levels, with a lot of divisions, and a lot of students to answer to. And of course that's going to take time, but with a little bit of initiative and a little bit of strength, you can really power through it and make sure that people are listening to you and taking you seriously, which is really, really important.
And Luis?
I've only recently learnt the structure of the university, and I do understand how it's taken so long. It can be coming from the bottom to the top halfway through, and it'll come back down. It does take time, and probably things won't be done when we're finished if we get the role, but at least we know it could be passed down in a little handbook to the next VP and go, this is what I've been doing. Continue that voice. I want you to continue. Voice my work. Continue. So if, I'm not saying that I will get the role, but if I do get the role, I will continue to voice Lupe's ideas and continue on. Because the voice that Kent Union has in the structure is important. And I might even help with the undergraduate and the postgraduate representatives that we have in these things, any student voices, because our voices matter. We need to not speed up the process, help the process.
That's good. Thank you guys very much. So the general consensus is to just keep pushing forward with whatever it is you're advocating for. And on that note, actually, so this is a bit of a situational question. If you had been advocating for the student agenda that you'd want to advocate for with the university senior management team, and from the first discussion, it's not looking very favorable, the response isn't looking quite positive, what would be your next steps in this case? We think we'll start with Luis.
If it's something I'm very passionate about, I will advocate it, but I would ask for feedback. How to, don't say it's a bad idea, tell me why it's a bad idea. Because if they go, I don't like it because I don't like it, that's not feedback, that's just an opinion. So I'd probably ask them, well, why don't you like it? Why is this idea a bad idea? Because no idea is bad, it's just how it's presented as well, so I'd try and improve my representation, earn more respect by communicating more. I've not been in the role very long for undergraduates, so it's a bit hard to represent yourself when you are still studying, trying to work your way in the networks and trying to plan stuff with a degree. So it's not easy, but representation, respect, and feedback is the most important things that we need.
And Lupe?
I can actually give you a concrete example because it's happened to me a lot of times this year. But one of the best examples I can give you relates to the Future of Teaching project that the university is doing at the moment, where they're trying to find out what do students want to keep from what we learned from COVID and what do we want to change. Of course, we don't want things to go back to normal as they were pre-COVID. There's a lot of really valuable things in terms of accessibility, in terms of flexibility and mitigation that's been really, really helpful for students. And we'd love to keep those things. So with that situation in mind, I really, really believe that divisional consultation is super important because that's where divisions were created to kind of give them their own authority and their own kind of personality to each division, and for them to be able to be more autonomous and make their own decisions, right? Because a chem student, a student that does computing, for example, won't need the same things as a student that does drama. They won't want to keep the same things, and that's completely natural and normal. But the university was looking to do a university-wide collection of feedback, which is great, but it's a lot harder to then break it down into divisions. It's a lot easier to start with the divisions, find out what each of them want, and then put the same things together in the middle. So I was really pushing for this divisional feedback to be collected, and at first I got told that no, that's not going to happen because we need university-wide policies. We can't be doing whatever each division wants to do. So what I did in that case, I just went and spoke with someone else because I have really good contacts with the university and really good relationships. I felt really comfortable going to a different staff member at a different level and kind of working it through with them. You know, presenting it as a really valuable idea, as well as making sure that I spoke with students and brought their opinions on, because the university really value when you give examples and kind of feedback directly from the students. So I did all of this. I spoke to a different person. I brought feedback from the university. I showed them how much I really believed in it and why I think it's such an important thing to do, as opposed to doing university-wide feedback collection. And would you know, like, a month later in meetings, they started saying like, yeah, we're going to start doing divisional collection of feedback. We're going to start doing it with divisions. So I was really happy. I was really, really pleased. But that's what I mean when I say you kind of have to keep pushing forward. You can't really give up if you believe that something's really right. But yeah, I guess it's just, you know, getting your contacts in, knowing who you're speaking to, knowing what you're talking about is really important. And making sure that you got students' opinions and voice to back it up as well.
All right, thank you very much, Lupe. And just a bit of a technical update. If you guys could just speak into your microphones a bit closer so people can hear us better. No problem. We'll just have you fix that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so whilst we're on that, actually, Lewis, we've got a question that's directed towards you specifically. So while officers will need to work towards achieving what students have voted for, their specific priorities that they voted for, what about the students' academic experience do you personally feel needs to be addressed?
That's a very difficult question because there's many, many things, but trying to pick just one. So I'm going to pick 3, if that's okay.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Communication with the academics and students. Some of it's great and some of it's not. So maybe trying to find a way to like make it a little bit better, because some divisions have great communication with their students and some just go, yeah, whatever. So I would like to have not like a mandate, but like training for staff members to be able to like know how to communicate with students, because each student's different. So trying to make it a little bit more accessible. Because during the pandemic, I was in a lab, and because we had the mask, the face shields, and someone had forgotten their hearing aids, and we didn't have those masks where you could see the mouth, and instead of going up to her, taking off the mask so they could lip read, they just shouted. And that is not what you should be doing. I think maybe a little bit more training for the staff. It can be optional or mandate. I'll probably fight for the mandate for more accessible training, because EDI is important. So more communication with accessibility. Feedback is not great for midterm evaluations and full evaluations at the moment, because we just get emails constantly and we're going, I can't find the time just to stop, fill it out until like the holidays, and that's when the full time comes out. But when the midterm ones are the most important, because they can actually influence it in the next part of the sessions. So maybe trying to find a way where the midterm evaluation can be a bit more, not emaily, but more discussion based, like in a seminar room. Actually talk to the lecturer on how to improve the module. So instead of it being on an email filling out a 30-minute questionnaire. And the final one, socialisation of students in academic societies, because not all the academic societies are out there. If you're unaware, the Women in STEM Society didn't have a committee. And that's really upsetting, because women in STEM is very important. Chemistry didn't even have a committee. And that's a major degree that we have here on campus. And it's upsetting when you don't see the students engaging with the academic societies anymore. So trying to find some way of representing might be a good idea.
Thank you. And Lupe, do you have any comment on what he's just said?
I agree. I think they're all really, really important things. And of course, there's a lot of key issues right now in higher education and in students' lives in general, issues like value for money, the current cost of living crisis that we are, walking into basically. But I think one of the most pressing things is the student mental health crisis that we have been going through for the past few years and have continued to be going through this year as well. We can see that more and more students having issues with their mental health in the number of extension requests that we get, in the number of mitigating circumstances applications that we get. And just from speaking to students in general, everyone's exhausted. People don't have the energy to engage with the students with the education in the best way possible, because there's a lot of policies and a lot of things happening in our academic environment that is simply just not healthy. So there's a lot of ideas I have, a lot of things that I've already put in place. For example, I'm working on a mental health campaign, both in Canterbury and in Medway. I'm also thinking about improving deadlines. I think that deadlines are a major anxiety-inducing kind of period for students. So I'm working on a healthy deadlines campaign with the university to make sure that we are staggering deadlines, that we don't have multiple deadlines on the same day, or at least not around the same times. Making sure that support is appropriate, that students feel comfortable in their learning spaces, that they don't feel intimidated, or that they don't feel like they don't belong, because that can also really take a really hard toll on your mental health. But there's a lot of things that we are experiencing right now as students that impact our mental health really negatively. And to be quite honest, if you're not well mentally, there's no way that you can actually engage with your studies, because if you don't have the energy to get out of bed, then how can you expect me to go to my seminar and contribute to the class or to analyze a case? It's just not going to happen. So I think there's a much deeper underlying issue that we really need to address and really take super seriously.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder to our audience, if you do have any questions you'd like to ask our candidates based on anything that they said thus far, please leave it in the live chat stream or do it via our link in our Instagram bio. Thank you. So our next question has to do with the Medway campus. When you normally speak to students at the Medway campus, they tend to say that they either feel left out or disadvantaged to some extent. How do you plan to support Medway students and ensure the academic experience across both campuses is balanced? I think we'll start with Luis.
I'm the chairman of the academic network, so I actually did some events in Medway with Lupe, and the one thing I didn't actually have in my thing was I've never had a tour at Medway, so I've never been to Medway before. I would only go and use the coach and then go to another school for student ambassador work. So I'm using the facilities, but I'm not actually experiencing student life there. So I feel like to engage Kent Uni more, maybe get the networks involved and actually go, here's a campus tour of Medway. This is the facilities they use. Why don't you talk to the students here and actually make them feel like they're engaged? Actually talk to the students, because all of us students are different. Some of us are from Canterbury, Medway, Brussels and Paris. We need the engagement of all students to be able to function Kent Union and with the university. So maybe getting the networks to have a campus tour at Medway and experiencing the type of facilities they have might be a good way to engage Medway students.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Lupe, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, of course. Well, I was a Medway student for 3 years. I am the first ever Medway officer at Kent Union, so that's something that makes me really proud, because I totally agree with what you say, that students do feel left out and they feel neglected and they really feel like they're getting the short end of the stick. I know I did when I was in Medway, and I realized it even more when I moved to Canterbury for this role, that the lack of just opportunities and just spaces in that campus is just such a huge, vast difference. There's on Lewis's point, I've been trying to organize this tour for the network, so hopefully that's something that we'll be doing very soon, because it's really exciting. As a Medway local, basically, I can really show them all the best places and all the places where all our students engage. But of course, since we've had the School of Sports and the School of Computing move from Medway to Canterbury, it's become a lot harder this year to engage with Medway students, just because the campus that we, in case you don't know, we share it with two other universities, Greenwich and Christchurch. It feels a lot less Kent because these two massive schools moved here. But that's what makes us understand that we need to push even more to represent them and to actually engage with them. I'm looking forward to bringing a new paper, a policy paper, to Kent Union Parliament next month, where I'll be asking our members to vote on approval to add 2 open spaces for Medway Parliament members so that they can come and give us the real-time experiences. Because of course I am the lead Medway officer, but I'm not in Medway all the time. I try to be as visible as possible. I usually go between 2 to 3 times a month to work from there and make sure that I'm showing students my face, that they know that someone's there for them. But I think that having Parliament members to help us and bring that experience constantly, but also to keep a closer eye on the ground as well, to let us know exactly what's happening in real time, is going to be one of the best ways to represent them. And of course, our student reps in Medway are incredibly important, and we need to make sure that their support that they receive and the training that they receive is of the highest standards.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question we have, that is also for the both of you, is about the ongoing strikes. So first of all, it's about a 3-part question. What is your personal opinion about these strikes? Do you support them or do you not support them? And what about the marking and assessment boycott that's recently just started? So I think we'll start with Lupe on this one.
Thank you. So in the first instance, for the first set of strikes in December, I was very, very supportive because at that time we didn't have the full picture of UCU's mandate. I was very hopeful and very optimistic, and I really, really thought that we would be able to reschedule all of the missed teaching. However, that didn't happen. UCU then announced that they would not be rescheduling anything. But then for the second set of strikes, I was also very supportive of them. I believe that the issues that they're fighting with, from speaking with students really, really understand what it's about. They really sympathize with the issues of equal pay in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity. They also really understand workload. We're exhausted. Our lecturers are exhausted. We're all kind of reached that point. So I really, all of that really resonated with me just as much as it resonated with a lot of other students. But also I was very clear to also keep in mind our postgraduate students who might be students and teachers at the same time. So obviously they find themselves in a, kind of a limbo where they don't really fit with the student body and they don't really fit with staff. And I think that it's really important to support them and represent them, because these are our own students. These are our members who are working in very precarious work conditions, who are overworked and underpaid, and are really struggling, and that's the only way that they have to continue to engage with their studies, is to teach at the same time, to be able to fund themselves. So I thought it was really, really important to support these students. However, for the assessment and marking boycott, I'm more on the fence about it. I feel like the impact that it will have on students might be a lot bigger than the impact that the university will see. And I know that the strikes and the assessment and marking boycott are not aimed at students. They're not aimed at hurting students or harming them in any way or harming their experience. They are aimed at using our anger as students for our disrupted teaching or our missed assessments marks as leverage to be able to get the university to hear them out and to negotiate with them. But I do think that the impact that it will have on our students is a lot more significant than the strikes have had. So yeah, it's something I'm a bit more on the fence about.
Okay, and Luis, do you have anything to add on to that?
Well, as a student, the strikes in December, I was actually in support because I understood why they were going for it and why they wanted to go on strike. But the ones in January, was it January, Feb? Second start of strikes.
February, March.
February, March. I'm bit fuzzy with the dates right now. I wanted to be neutral because I wasn't sure if they were going to continue or not. As a commuting student, I didn't want to just come in and then find out a minute later via email that my lecture was cancelled, and then having to commute all the way back to where I live. And that's not fair on me as a student, having to commute in, commute back, and not having any seminars or lectures on my back saying, I have done nothing. Why am I paying this for? So I just try to remain neutral. I will be there when I want to be there, but I also want to be there as a student and respect. I want to respect the decision, but I want to also have what I sort of paid for and actually learn what I want to learn, because I'm actually enjoying my modules right now and I don't want to miss that experience of learning. So I've remained neutral for the second ones, but the assessment boycott, I think it's going to severely impact students mentally and emotionally, because emotionally they are relying on these grades in their final year. So if they're final year students, they are relying on this. First years, they've got some time, but it's still an issue because it's still a deadline. I want to know what I got to see if I can get a placement year or a year abroad or my year in degree, because your first year grade actually goes towards it. So your first year does matter. Second years, it's still a very anxious process because you've got to maintain your level of excellence to keep the placement. And so the assessment boycott will have severely impact students and I think it might overwhelm student support and well-being.
No, thank you very much for that response. And even following on that, so essentially, students during this the strike actions, what happens is that the student union tends to vote in favor of the strikes based on student meetings and forums and sort of feedback that's given. Do you feel, and from your personal responses right now, that Kent Union's stance is actually reflective of its members' views? And if not, how do you plan to get a more reflective view going forward? I think we'll start with Lupe.
Thank you. I think that the student view on industrial action has been very split down the middle the whole time, from students that really sympathize with the issue and then students that are really angered by it. I was part of the policy renewal about how Kent Union decides its stance. So I took a big part in writing it and proposing it at Parliament, and we all voted collectively on it. And it's a three-step process that involves consulting with students, initially consulting with our networks and getting them to reach out to their own, the students that are part of the network and speak with them. And also then taken part of our industrial action forums with representatives from the university and from UCU, which have been open to every single student. They've also been recorded and posted online for students to engage with it and tell us their opinions. We are always pushing to get students' views. Personally, I'm very much a democratic person. I don't think I'm here to stand for what I stand for. I'm here to stand for what the whole of Kent stands for. I think that you can always be more representative of everyone, but I think that for the strikes in particular, I'm not talking about the boycott, I'm talking about the strikes, we didn't see that much student engagement. I think particularly my hypothesis is that because of what I mentioned before, our mental health crisis that we're going through right now, students are just crying out for a break. And I feel like a lot of students saw some of these days of strikes as a little breather. I know I've directly spoken with a lot of students that have told me, you know what, I really needed like a few days without lectures because I actually wouldn't have been able to go anyway because I had just been so exhausted or been so overwhelmed. But I think that in the forums that we'd had yesterday and today, when it comes to the marking boycott, students are a lot more angered by it because they see the impact and they seem to be engaging a lot more. And we've been hearing from students that we didn't hear from in the past. So I think that we are making a lot of big steps to increasing our representation and making sure we include as many students' views as possible. But of course, like I said, you can always be more representative and you can always do more. But you can trust us to know that we are doing all the best that we can to engage as many students as possible and to be as representative as possible.
Thank you, Lupe. And Luis?
I'm the chairman of 2 networks, so I actually go out and speak to bodies that I'm actually representing. And I have great connections with the Mature Society, and I speak to some commuting students, part-time students, and some even carer students. Most of them have actually been from Medway, which was a nice surprise to talk to. And they're actually more engaging in Medway than they are in Canterbury, because the strike seemed to affect them more up there with Greenwich predominantly being the partner, and because they haven't got many Kent lecturers up there. And when they go on strike, it's a bit, oh dear, what am I meant to do? Everyone else has gone out and I'm here on my own, which I think is it is sad to hear. And I'm like, right, I will support you. My views don't matter. Your views matter. And when I try and do the academic, the engagement is not there when it comes to the strikes, but the assessment one was very engaging. Speaking to students just in like passing, because my photos on the Kent Union website, they recognise my face and they go, actually I have something to say. So it's nice to have the engagement, but I wish I had time to prepare when I'm actually talking to them and not being bombarded while I'm getting lunch.
No, yeah, thank you very much for that response. So we've actually got a question from our online audience. Thank you very much for that question. It's basically, do you have any comments on the increasing commercialization of the university experience? So I believe this question is basically asking about how things are getting more commercialized. It's more about money than about maybe quality to an extent. Lupe, if you want to start us off with this one.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's been the root cause of a lot of issues. Particularly when it comes to strike, I think that the commercialization of universities and higher education institutions overall has played a huge part in it. I understand that universities are not here to make a profit, and if they do make a profit, they're here to use that profit to reinvest and make sure that that money is going to making the experience more enjoyable, more attractive for our students. I think that a lot of the times university staff or academics might not understand us when we talk about value for money. And I don't think they understand, because student fees have been introduced very recently. Up to 2010, people going to university were only paying £3,000 for the academic, for the tuition in each year. Whereas now they've trebled, and we are seeing students getting into anywhere from 30k to 60k pounds worth in debt by the time they graduate university. And I feel like a lot of the times we're not understood because of that, because a lot of the people that are making the decisions, a lot of the people that are teaching us have never had to pay for the degree, or might have paid, a considerably less amount than we have. But I think that's playing a really big issue in the misunderstanding that's going on between the university and students. I don't think we are asking for too much. I think that asking for quality education is asking for what we have paid for. And I believe that, if the university wants to go down this more commercial route, then we need to be seriously treated as customers that deserve to be heard, that deserve to have their input implemented into the product, to make sure that we are co-creating it. Because otherwise there's nothing in it for us other than getting into debt and then getting a subpar experience.
Thank you, Lupe. And Luis, do you have anything to add to that?
Today, a student from a school actually asked me, was university worth it? And I said yes. My degree, at the end of it, I would probably get a job. But I'm paying £9,250 a year for tuition alone. That's not including maintenance. So I hear Aisha's doing a plan telling us where the money's going. That would be a nice way to introduced to students that are actually applying for university, knowing where the money is going if they want to commercialise it, because then you get to see where the VAT is. I know it's a little joke, but it's something I told my dad and he found it hilarious. But that's a way to make sure that when they are applying for university, they're actually more reassured where the money is going. Because then that's customer satisfaction, and that's also student satisfaction, because then they go, the money's going to facilities, this is going to the lecturers, this is making sure that some of the maintenance to the estates is maintained, it's going to the cleaners.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Lewis. Sorry about that. We've got a little time left, so I might just cut you off real quick.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ed, for that question. We've got another question from Sabwatch. If you are elected, will you push for compensation for students if action, the marking barcode, goes ahead? So just a really quick response to that one. Lupe, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually something that we have already been working on, and actually a paper went out this week to executive groups at the university. That's the senior leadership team at the university. So I'm very proud to say that both myself and Aisha, the current president, have been pushing really hard for students to be compensated financially, just like they were compensated back in 2018, 2019. So hopefully with a little bit more patience, in a few months towards the end of term, students should be seeing that financial compensation according to the level of disruption that they have seen. So if they have missed just a few events that weren't mitigated or their assessments are late, then they will get a certain amount. But if they've been severely affected, then they would be getting considerably more. And that's kind of how it goes down. So hopefully that's what's going to be happening. And you can expect me to continue pushing for that again if we find ourselves in the same situation next year.
Thank you, Lupe. Anything quick to add on that?
As a student, knowing that is really, really nice. But I would also push for any compensation for any student.
Thank you both. So I think that brings us a close to the debate section. We will now be hearing the candidates' closing statements, starting with Luis.
You've heard what I've had to say about communication, feedback, and EDI, accessibility. I would continue to fight for these. Even if I don't get the role, I would even go into my future job and fight for these, because these are the important values that the university needs to maintain, or even a professional business. So thank you for listening, and hope to speak to any of you soon.
Thank you. And Lupe, if you could present your closing statement.
Thank you. I hope that a lot of the ideas and initiatives that I presented really resonated with some of you watching this today. I just want to tell you I love the job that I have right now. I'm really passionate about it. I'm really good at it as well. And I would like to continue doing all the work that I have done this year, and to make sure that my projects see it close, that they get a result, and that the things that I've been fighting for on behalf of students get a result and get a positive solution at the end. I think particularly in the academic role, consistency is really, really important across the years. It takes a long time and a lot of effort to build the relationships that I have built. But I would love to continue having the opportunity to represent you, to raise your voice, to hear you out, and to fight for you, because that's ultimately what I'm here to do, what I'm passionate about. And yeah, if you want a very honest and very diligent and fun BP academic experience, vote Lupe on March the 10th.
Thank you, Lupe. Thank you to the candidates, and thank you very much for watching. My name is Anku-Tsed, and these are your candidates for the Vice President of Academic Experience 2022. We will be right back for the debate for the Vice President of Welfare and Community, chaired by Daniela Ross, so please stay tuned. Have a good night.
all closed off as well. Just like, ooh. Hello everyone, I'm Daniela Ross and welcome back to the Student Union election debates for the VP Welfare and Community candidates. We're joined at the studio with Thomas Freeston and Shalina Jasmine. If anyone has any questions to the candidates, please feel free to comment on this live stream, or alternatively you can submit questions via the link in KTV's Instagram bio. We'll now give the candidates a chance to give their opening statements. Let's start with Tom.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tom. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a psychology graduate and current master's management student. I've had a fun fact about me is I've been at this university for 5 years and I'm looking for every reason to stay. So last year you might remember that I ran for welfare and community but came second place. I was disappointed by this, but nonetheless I carry on. So here I am again 1 year later rerunning for the Vice President Welfare and Community position. Although my passion for student advocacy, liberation, mental health, equality, diversity and inclusivity remains the same, a few things have changed for the better. My experience and understanding of Kent Union and the university, and most importantly my determination to represent students. I've had many experiences over the past year that would make me a potential candidate that would excel in this role, both locally, in Canterbury and nationally. So I hope tonight I can demonstrate to you, the audience, why I'm the best candidate for the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Shalina, can we hear your opening statement?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honour to share this platform with this amazing candidate over here. For those at home who don't know me, hi, I'm Shalina. I'm a third year history and politics student. There are so many reasons for why I want to stand. However, I think the one that is most important for me is that I wish to be the full person for this diverse and inclusive community. I wish to solve the solutions within our society, and most importantly make sure that we resolve the issues that are in the university for future generations ahead. There are some issues that I will be focusing on throughout my campaign that you will see are student safety, EDI, sexual misconduct within the student population, but most importantly mental health and well-being. I think one key important priority for me will be definitely, which you will probably see, will be having this open communication between myself and the students. I do wish for all students to come to me, whatever the problem may be, if you want to vent out or if you just want to sit in silence and just have someone there. I do wish to be that person for you, and that's what I'll be fighting for. And yeah, thank you, and I can't wait for the rest of this debate.
Cool, thank you, Shalina. Right, so let's start with the question part of the debate. So the first question is, what is the thing you are most passionate about in your campaign? Tom, should we start with you?
Yeah, I believe there are many things. It's really hard to narrow it down to just one. I think really what this year I've been focusing on, which is a bit different from last year, is really sexual misconduct in higher education. It's rife. There's student-staff relationships and the policies are quite unclear and it's grey areas. So I'd look to review that sort of the grey areas and sort of re-establish it. I also think that the measures at the moment are reactive rather than proactive, and I believe that we should be showcasing the disciplinary processes more clearly. Also the process for reporting someone who has sexually misconduct against a student. Every report is done in isolation, so it makes it very hard to spot patterns in which we can then identify perpetrators. And at the moment it's very isolated in the way that we would never be able to pick on those sort of things. So I believe that every student deserves the right to feel safe and be valued for who they are and not be mistreated. And I believe there's so much more we could do to create consent culture on campus, and we're heading in the right direction, but I believe that I'm a great person to lead on that.
Cool, and Shalina, what about you?
For me, like I just mentioned, I think my main priority would be mental health and well-being, especially throughout the whole COVID situation, and now we are having strikes happening. Throughout this whole past 3 years, mental health has been something that has literally been up and down, And now with resources such as student support and well-being, they are being overworked to the point where there's many cancellations because there's not many people, like there's so many people wanting to use the service, but they're not able to because the staff can't just afford it. But there are services available like Canterbury Nightline, like the advice service in Kent Union. There are Spectrum Life as well that has been up and running this year. And my main priority is not to raise awareness for those services, but also to make sure that students are aware that there are resources that they can use, not just those services, but like if they want to talk to someone such as myself, or rather if whatever they want, they can come and tell us, essentially.
Cool, great. So for both of you again, what has been the proudest moment of your university life? I'm sure, Shalina, do you want to go first this time?
Gosh, there's too many proudest moments. I mean, this year I can proudly say I am part of too many committees. So part of President for Kent Immersion, Secretary for Dodgeball, Treasurer and Advocacy Officer for British Red Cross, part of 4 different networks, yes, different ones. I think if I was to pick a proudest moment, it would definitely be an advocacy session that I did within British Red Cross, which was the Holocaust Memorial Day with JSOC. I think that was one that not only tied in a true love of mine, which is history, but it was such a momentous and a very important event that needed to happen in order to not only inform other people, but have it for ourselves to kind of commemorate that important day.
And Tom?
Yeah, I mean, if you probably would have asked me this time last year, it'd be very different perhaps to this year. I think my proudest achievement is being part of Respect the No and organising the March Against Spiking with the other committee members. And it was really important that we stood in solidarity amongst each other to show the university and the senior management, and also to have an impact much wider in Canterbury, that what currently is happening isn't good enough and that we could be doing so much more for tackling things like spiking. And I think it really did spark some good conversations across the university, and it's really opened people's eyes to what more could be done, but there is still a lot more that could be done.
Cool, and I mean, as you just said about safety, it's a big concern for students. How would you work with the council and the university to improve the safety for the students in Canterbury and Medway?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to work with the local authorities, and I have been doing so already. I'm part of the Independent Police Advisory Group, and I'm lucky to be a part of that and talk to Kent Police and challenge them on things like spiking, hate crime, stop and search. And I do believe that these skills I've gained and actually being able to talk to them has really meant that I'll be able to quickly adapt into this role and use those skills to engage with them to the best of my ability. I believe that we also need to consider more marginalised voices in safety, not just the broad sense, but seeing how it impacts intersectionally towards black people, students who are LGBTQ. I think there really needs to be a focus on these sort of inner parts of safety, and as well as everyone's safety. Yeah.
Cool. And Shalina, how would you improve the safety? Help to improve the safety?
I mean, I do agree with Tom. I think there were some important points raised there that were completely valid. Definitely, I think for me, because I do want to have this kind of personal connection and communication with students, so for me it would be communicating with students in that, like maybe a focus group, or going out in the plaza and talking one-to-one with them, because you never know what students are thinking of unless you talk to them directly and you address them directly.
Perfect. And so this role looks after lots of liberation-based groups. How would you work and to promote it? How would you work and promote issues or difficulties that these groups are facing at university?
Who's going?
Anyone?
Tom?
Yeah, okay, so I'm part of the LGBTQ+ network here at Kent, helping to represent students who protected characteristic is sexuality. So I think this year I've really understood, perhaps talking to students, perhaps what their issues are. I think as welfare and community officer, I really would like to have regular meetings with all 5 liberation networks, really get to know them, understand the issues that they're facing and sort of the issues they're talking to students about to best get a grip of what it is that I could do to support them. I can't represent every group. You know, I'm not a part of every liberation group and protected characteristic, but my role would be empowering, uplifting and inspiring those groups to be able to mobilise them and ensure that their campaigns is flourishing and taking off and they're getting lots of involvement, and using my resources and contacts within the role to ensure that we really create a different society, a different Kent. And I believe that my skills of being in this network already has really helped with that. Yeah.
What about you?
Definitely. So with this role, you do have a platform, and what better way to use that platform by raising the voices of others. So if they need something that needs to be raised or something that is a concern to them, I would like to be that person to kind of just elevate their voices and get it out there for other students who needs to hear it, because there are some things that you don't really realize that you do have in common with these liberation groups, that when one day you're just like thinking about it and it's like, oh, I didn't realize I had that in common. So definitely raising awareness to these groups and putting it out there that there's something there.
Cool. And how well do you think ethnic minorities are represented at Kent? And do you think more can be done in terms of diversity? Should we start with Tom?
Yeah, I mean, so it's really important that we focus on marginalised voices, particularly Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. And I believe that there was a really big cultural change towards senior management with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I remember there was this network of black students who really wanted to put 10 pledges across the university to change the culture at Kent and much wider. And I did read those recently, and I really think they're really important. So I believe that we could be tackling things like racism much better, being more bold in the way we do it, and perhaps encouraging the university management to sort of, I'm not sure if this is the case, but if it is, it needs to be communicated, having a lead member of staff in the senior management who focuses on racism and tackling it, making sure it's on every committee's agenda so that we always are talking about how we can tackle these issues, but also giving them the space to talk and to vent and really understanding what they want, but also giving them the support, because talking about their issues is quite draining. So we really need to ensure that there's also the well-being aspect towards ensuring we're getting this feedback. So yeah.
Yeah, again, completely agree with Tom there, because there can be so many issues behind one person that the well-being of that one person definitely can take quite a hit. So definitely looking after them in that sense, but also with I do feel that diversity on campus has been quite huge. I mean, there are so many different cultural societies on campus. There's definitely the BAME network, and that have been doing some incredible work. And yeah, but there are so much more to be done. There's so much more to educate other students about. I mean, I am aware there was a course at the beginning of the year about white privilege. I could be wrong, but yeah, I remember seeing it somewhere, and it was Kent taking that step forward to go ahead and educate students about it. However, I do feel you won't fully understand every issue until you talk to those students.
Mm-hmm. And in what ways would you engage people with different neurodiversities? Because a community has been created for people with autism, but what about everyone else? Do you want to start first, Lena?
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, I can say that when it comes to those kind of communities, even though they're created, there's still a lot of work to be done. So I would definitely try to incorporate them more. Also, there is other, there's some communities like the deaf community or the blind community, definitely getting them involved. So like right now, Kent Union is working on different content on trying to involve a British Sign Language in there, so definitely involving them and trying to engage in that aspect as well. Basically just speaking their language, whatever their language is, and finding out on the best way to communicate with them, I would say.
Do you mind repeating the question?
In what ways would you engage people with different neurodiversities? Because a lot has been done with people with autism.
Yeah, so having done psychology and having a background in psychology, I've really learnt a lot about neurodiversity, autism and different neurodiversion like disabilities and what's all sorts really, and just uniquenesses, I guess, rather, I'd like to make clear. And I believe that it is somewhat a difficult thing if you've not been a part and you're not neurodiverse yourself, so it's really ensuring we listen to them. But I do know that there is difficulties for people with autism because social interaction is quite difficult. So it's giving them the online platforms perhaps where they can just sort of type their feedback rather than doing it verbally face to face, giving them the sort of, I know that Student Support and Wellbeing are doing support groups for autistic students. And I think that's really important to give them those spaces where they can connect with others who share those similarities and actually make them feel less alone. I feel like perhaps being neurodivergent might make you feel a bit isolated and different, but bringing these communities together is really important. I also know that sort of loud noises and being in loud rooms is really difficult, so ensuring there's quiet spaces within venues and settings so that they can just be without having disrupted and overloading their senses. So it's understanding them more, and I think one thing I would love to do is do a neurodivergent campaign on campus, getting people's opinions on what is it to be neurodivergent and seeing how we can shift the attitudes and change it so we can make a more inclusive culture at Kent.
Perfect. So students have been isolated for such a long time during this pandemic. How do you think you can help immerse the students back into society? Shalina, do you want to go?
Okay. Definitely holding a lot more events, but I think having focus groups and getting students to talk about their time in isolation, kind of get all these pent-up emotions of how isolation had made them feel, and kind of just get it out so that then they're able to just leave a chapter behind and go forward, move on. But I understand it is not an easy thing because we don't really know everyone's one story. So definitely having this level of communication would be good, and holding events to kind of get them out their shell and just allow them to slowly but surely get back into normalcy.
So I guess that isolation has created a lot of anxiety in students, and now they're coming back to the new normal. It's about understanding what it is being a student on campus, how to navigate it. First years, they're now in second year, and that they're just navigating what the university life is. And it's really difficult. And there's lots of challenges that they're facing, not just sort of mentally, but academically. And these all sort of congregate to one massive issue. And belongingness is a really important thing. So some people might not access sort of mental health support in the traditional sense. They might take alternative avenues such as practicing their faith, cultural societies, and I think it's really important that we foster communities and common identities that students share and getting them back together on campus. And I think we need to create more awareness of the facilities we have both at the university but much wider. So being a part of Student Minds nationally now has allowed me to understand that there is Student Space, this platform online that's really, really great. There's abundance of resources, especially about coronavirus and sort of coming out of the lockdowns. And I think we really need to do some sort of like reflection. And I know there's the listening rooms that are happening at Kent for mental health and to understand what students' issues are. And I'm lucky to be a part of that and sort of helping with the questionnaire along with Favour, the current welfare and community officer. So I'd really like to continue these projects and really collate the data and seeing what we can do to sort of create some really big change on campus going into the next year.
Great. And do you think the fact that the government has lifted all COVID restrictions presents an issue for the student body? Tom, do you want to start?
Yeah, it has. I mean, that it was sort of we were thrusted back into normal and they're getting rid of all testing and it's creating a lot of anxiety. I know students who who are afraid of COVID, still rightly so, are a bit unsure to go out at times. And I really think we need to understand perhaps the issues they're facing, ensuring that we're actually creating events that's still accessible for those who are not ready to venture out just yet. And also perhaps sort of how it affects different students. I know that if you're from a different marginalised background, that these restrictions had different effects whilst you're in the pandemic, and things like poverty coming out might influence how you're able to interact with your peers. And I think really, it is a difficult one, but I really think giving the students spaces to listen and to listen to them is always very key.
And Shalina?
Well, with the government just lifting all restrictions, all COVID restrictions, I mean, it is a very detrimental thing. It is not the best. I personally just think it's not the best thing to do. However, it's worse for students who are not, who especially haven't been on campus in their whole time here. It's because they're so used to doing their degree at home that now coming onto campus is kind of like a big shock to them. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? It's so definitely just trying to, like Tom said, make things accessible to them, definitely kind of make sure that they're not being forced into society, if that makes sense. More like we're easing them back into it. We're kind of holding their hand and taking them through that, okay, this is what this is what that is. If you have anything that you want to say or any questions or anything like that, come to us. We are here to talk to you about it. We can help you. So yeah, definitely just making it more accessible and easier on everyone.
Cool. And do you think students at this uni have knowledge of all the mental health services that are available to them, and how can it be improved?
Can I take this one?
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I can tell you that, no. I think there is a lot of work for students to have the knowledge that there are a lot of mental health services available on campus. Like I can say that there is one Canterbury Nightline that is kind of part of Kent Union. There were times where if you had asked someone about it, they wouldn't know. Stuff like Spectrum Life as well. Someone could just see the poster. It's like, oh, what's that? So definitely raising more awareness to that through this role that we would be having, especially as I'm aware Kent Union does a lot to try and promote the services out there. But as much as they try, it's very limited on what they can do, and it's very limited on how much the students can engage within what Kent Union does, essentially. So using our platforms to raise those services and working with student support and well-being, working with division heads, working with essentially everyone on campus to make sure that these services are promoted as much as they can be, because there are many students who need it.
Thank you. And Tom, do you have anything to comment on that?
Yeah, do you mind just repeating it so I've got it in my head again?
Sorry.
No.
So, do you think students have knowledge of the mental health services on campus?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Perhaps they do, but they just don't want to engage with them because they're tired, they're overwhelmed, they don't have the capacity, or they don't feel like they'll be listened to. I know that there's a lot of work being done to diversify the counselling service right now, ensuring it's intersectional and approachable for all. But it might not be the best it can be, and I feel like some students who come from marginalised backgrounds might not feel that I'm ready to come forward. There's no one there that represents me. They won't understand my issues in the culturally competent way I'd like them to. So it's really ensuring we understand those students' issues on the ground level and saying, you know, what more could we be doing to diversifying the counselling, to ensuring it represents you and what your identity is and the unique sort of issues you might be facing culturally. And in terms of, they might be practicing their religion as a way of mental well-being. So we need to kind of like do a university-wide scale review of mental health and seeing what ways are students accessing sort of mental well-being rather than necessarily just the services, and how are they ensuring that they're keeping sort of together really. And I do believe that the services we do have are great, but they might be underutilised because the waiting times are so long. I know that I really wanted an appointment perhaps about a week or two ago. I was told my appointment would be the 10th of March. By the time that comes, the problem that was so prominent then has surpassed. But the underlying mechanism in my head might still be there, but it's not sort of at the cognitive level on the ground that I'm feeling it, but it might be still in my head. So it's really ensuring we're giving really quick and active mental health facilities that work for students, but also equipping students with own wellbeing tools and resources, so that we can really get to understand their issues. I think one final point I'd like to add is that when we talk about mental health, we're not just talking about depression, we're talking about things like eating disorders, which I'm really, really passionate about. But the services currently are absolutely insignificant. There's no awareness of what even an eating disorder is, and I think we really could be doing a lot more to look at the broad spectrum of mental health, not just depression and anxiety, but schizophrenia, OCD, all these different mental health disorders that students could be facing.
Thank you. And moving on to sustainability, the Kent Community Oasis Garden promotes sustainability on campus, but do you think this is enough? Who wants to go?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, okay.
Tom?
Yeah, sustainability, it's a really important thing that often gets forgotten about, especially perhaps in this role or just more generally, but we need to set more ambitious goals. I think currently the target's for 2050 or 2030, but we could be a bit more ambitious and bold in that. I think at the moment, are we doing enough visibly to promote sustainability? Do students know enough about it? Are they equipped with the tools to be sustainable themselves? But also making sustainability accessible. Students from sort of different backgrounds might not be able to access being more sustainable. For example, like it's quite expensive to be sustainable. Buying a bamboo cup isn't cheap. We need to make sure we're giving really like easy, quick ways for students to be sustainable, equipping them with the knowledge, ensuring it's in the academic sort of content we're learning, embedding sustainability into the curriculum. Because there are a lot of climate activists at this campus, but they might not be mobilised with the tools even to be more visible, more bold, and being able to help them raise awareness of sustainability on campus. So I think we could be doing a lot to mobilise students who are passionate about this, making it more accessible and affordable, and incentivising it is a really important one. Sustainability is important, but not for everyone. They might not find it fun. So let's incentivise it, let's make it so that everyone can enjoy being sustainable, and making it sort of like a competition, you know, I've seen that in Oxford they did this one thing where like they got students to enter into a competition who had the most points at the end sort of won a big prize. We could be doing sort of things like that.
Yeah. Shalina, do you want to add anything?
Those are amazing, great points again. Yeah, but definitely building on the idea of incentivizing it, because sustainability is not for everyone. There are some people who just doesn't care whatsoever. It's just another tap on the Instagram for them on the story. So definitely making it a project that we can all work together to push forward would be something that could potentially engage more students.
Thank you. And so how would you guys support the work of volunteering opportunities at Kent, such as Food Bank and Nightline? Shalina?
So I actually volunteer for the food bank, and I do a lot of volunteering opportunities on campus. So the thing is with the volunteering opportunities is you have to get it out there essentially. So for example, one volunteering opportunity that I do, Safe Mates, which is the tent from British Red Cross who stays outside of venue every Wednesday. Just having that persona out there, that kind of safe space for everyone to come in and just be like, yeah, we're not going to judge you, we're going to support you rather. And I think that's also another thing that Nightline and the food bank does as well, because it is this kind of no judgment free zone, which is important for students, because I feel that sometimes it's like, okay, so if I go and try and access these services, these people are going to judge me. These people are going to, they're going to think, oh, I'm not in the best place right now, and I can't show that. But I think definitely kind of breaking the stigma that we don't need to know about your personal situation. If you need us, we are there. So yeah.
And Tom?
Yeah, do you mind repeating it again, just so it's clear in my head?
So how would you support the work of volunteering opportunities at Kent, such as Food Bank and Nightline?
Yeah, so obviously for the students who need them, they're really important. I know last year we had conversations about Food Bank, but we're now talking about sort of getting involved with that, which is the different side perhaps to last year. And I think really volunteering is a really lovely thing. I think me and Shalina both know what volunteering is and how beneficial it is. And it actually gives us great joy. Getting to connect with like-minded people who share the same passion for something is amazing. And we could really be talking more about that and the benefits of volunteering, you know, getting involved, what it does for your well.
Okay, we're back. Tom, do you want to repeat what you were just saying?
Yeah, so I think me and Sheena both know the benefits of volunteering, how beneficial it has been for us. It gives us a great sense of joy, passion, and being with like-minded people is really great. And you can network with these people. You might end up leaving university and forming your own sort of charity, and that would be lovely, you know. Getting students involved with volunteering is really important. It helps with your well-being, and perhaps it's an alternative way to practice your well-being, is getting involved. But also sort of perhaps more incentives in terms of like certificates. You know, I don't know if they're actually a thing with getting involved, you know, and like we have the volunteering hours that we log, but like one from Kent Union would be quite nice too. And yeah, volunteering is lovely. I think I'd promote it to all you watching to get involved.
Okay, and so we have one online question. How would you make more people care about the elections process? Shalina?
We already are trying. We're trying with social media, we're trying to get it out there. But as well, next week we have the physical campaigning coming up where we're going to be talking to many students. So trying to get, I think it's more important that we try to reach people with physical campaigning rather than social media campaignings, because with social media it's very easy to just skip. You don't really need to pay attention to it. But with physical campaigning, with being able to communicate with students and talk to students and actually get their views on, okay, why do you not care about the elections? What is it do you think that we could change about the whole thing? What approach do you think would work best for you? I think definitely in that aspect, having that interaction with them, it could be like, oh, okay, so this person spoke to me about elections. What is it about? What can I know more about it? So definitely just having that personal, but the personal interaction and communication with them.
Thank you. And Tom?
Yeah, so obviously people don't engage with elections and the turnout is significantly lower than we'd perhaps love it to be. And it's really understanding why students are disengaged. There must be a reason. Is it that the union doesn't support them enough, perhaps? Do they feel that their vote doesn't matter? But it's really important to inform viewers that they have a democratic right, you know, to vote. They can vote, and it's a really powerful tool to make some change. So this year, if you're really discouraged and dissatisfied with Kent Union, or you don't think your voice will make a difference, why don't you vote? And you can vote for a difference.
Cool, thank you. So Shalina, you say that you'll be there for the students. Could you elaborate on how you plan on doing this?
Yeah, so what I mean I will be there for students, I mean that I wish to have this, something that I've been practically saying all throughout the debate, I wish to have this personal connection with students. I wish to sit down, be there if you want.
Okay, sorry for the technical issues. Shalina, can you repeat what you were just saying?
Yeah, so what I mean by I will be there for people, something I've been saying throughout the debate is that I wish to have this personal connection with the students. So what I mean by this is that I wish to have this open communication, this open space where you can practically stop me in the middle of plaza and come and talk to me, or you can just come and just see me, and if you have a problem, like you need to vent out about something, or if you just really need someone just to talk to, I wish to be there, because there's one thing about talking to someone who you rely on, or who is a lecturer or something, but then there's something else about having someone with an outsider perspective, someone who doesn't know anything of the sort, and just to getting every single thing out with them. It's a different kind of feeling that you get. So I wish to be that person for everyone. I do understand there will be times where I can't, I might be doing something and I can't really, physically be there, but I will make an effort and I will try.
Thank you. So that's all the questions we have for today. I'd like to hear now your closing statements. Once again, let's start with Tom.
Yeah. So students, you have a democratic right to vote, and it's very powerful, and you can change the shape of Kent Union. So I'm urging you this year to use your vote and your voice to make a difference. Students hold the power at the university, it isn't the other way round. Enough is enough and we can make a change. If you elect me, I promise to lead with compassion and determination to ensure that students are top priority at Kent. I promise to uplift, empower and fight for the most marginalised voices on campus, such as BAME, LGBTQ and disabled students. I promise to ensure that no minority group is left behind, and to ensure that there's adequate support for all, because it's morally wrong to ensure that we don't empower others, and by letting down a large intersection of our community, we're depriving students of unlocked potential and talent. So we need to learn to lead with determination and being bold. And if you elect me, I promise I can do that for you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Thomas for Welfare, and I hope to see you at voting day.
Okay. Perfect. Shalina, can we hear your closing statement, please?
Yeah, so first of all, whoever you choose to be your VP, whether it be me or whether it be Tom, you will be in good, safe hands. But if you do choose to elect me as your VP of Welfare and Community, I promise to fight as hard as I can for you. I promise to look after every single one of you as if you were my own. I don't want to leave any single one person behind. If you are struggling with something, mentally or something that is academically, whatever it is, I promise I will be there. It won't be the easiest journey, as well as like you guys will be teaching me everything. I hope that I can also provide a platform for you guys to have your voices with the university, with Kent Union, with everyone in general, and I will try my hardest, even though it's going to be a long journey to voting day. I promise I will try my hardest for all of you guys, and definitely please do vote on the 10th of March.
Thank you very much, Shalina. Thank you to the candidates for participating in this debate, and thank you for everyone for watching. We'll be back on Thursday, where we'll be joined by Amber Barber for the Vice President of Student Engagement debate at 6 p.m. Thank you and good night.